Does it? Okay, we are live. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Got a lot of things we want to talk about. INEOS potentially not convinced about the long-term future of Erik Ten Hag. Jason Wilcox could be about to join Manchester United in the coming weeks. We play Bournemouth on Saturday, and I'm also looking for your opinions on Erik Ten Hag's future as Manchester United manager. Just let me quickly run through the poll as options just before we begin tonight's stream. So what is the stance on Ten Hag from you guys? Do you guys think he needs more time? Do you think, yep, let's keep Ten Hag, but there's no doubt he has to improve the results and it has to get better than what it currently is? Or do you think he can't save himself? There's not enough time left in the season. Things have already gone too far wrong and it might only be a matter of time before the axe falls. Or finally, do you think that he has to go along with a lot of the players? Let me know your thoughts down below, and I guess we'll get kicked off into this here and we'll get talking about this very interesting article from Rob Dawson of ESPN. So, fundamentally, guys, it starts off like this. INEOS are unconvinced about Erik Ten Hag. Now, look, I've said this, if I've said this once, I've said this a million times in the channel. Whenever we see INEOS in the name, whenever we say INEOS, etc., we're talking Manchester United at this point. It's not Jim Radcliffe unconvinced. It's Manchester United unconvinced. And to me, looking at the state of play, looking at the position we are in, with the technical director in Jason Wilcox about to join the club, with Omar Berrada joining within the next 2 months or so, and along with, at some point, Dan Ashworth coming in, combined with the people already at Manchester United under the INEOS group, under this new leadership, they're going to be making big calls, and it's got to the point now where calls have to be made. They can't be deferred any longer. It's unfortunate because I am positive beyond belief that we would already have wanted to make these calls based upon what we've already seen this season, based upon the fact that we haven't had the takeover done. If the takeover was done in November, we could have had Ashworth in, Wilcox in, possibly Berrada in by now. We could have the decision already made, is what I'm trying to say. But I think we've got to that point. I think the club have made their call. Even if it's not public, I think they know what they're looking to do. And if there is new management potentially coming in, they will have spoken to said management already. I think we've found quite a lot with this INEOS ownership at the minute, in the first couple of weeks and months of this new year at the club, that not too many things get out. It's a lot less than what it was before, and obviously no Richard Arnold contributes to that. Obviously no John Murda now contributes to that. And I do want to get talking about Murda because he was a key backer of Erik Ten Hag, and part of the reason we have Erik Ten Hag as our manager right now is because John Murda pushed very, very hard to have Erik Ten Hag come in as the manager. They've worked side by side, and for better or wrong, John Murda has now left the club, and now this will also fall in line with Erik Ten Hag. Now look, there's a multitude of different ways this can go. We've seen a change in perception coming out from Ten Hag sources around his position as manager in the last couple of months. For a long time, we were hearing that he didn't want to have to relinquish any of his control. Then it began to turn around saying he would be willing to work within a structure. Then it became he would be willing to take the head coaching role at Manchester United and start to work towards that. And now there's question marks over his long-term future beyond this season. Because at the minute, it feels like the season's pretty much over. We can't get top 4. We can't get top 5. We're seeing articles coming out at the minute about top 6 finishes getting Champions League if West Ham finish 5th and win Europa League. I mean, we're getting into silly territory here. There won't be Champions League football next season. There might not be Europa League. It could be conference, or it could be no football whatsoever in Europe next year. I'm not too sure what the stipulations are. They're changing every week. I don't even think UEFA know at this point. But I do think Ten Hag's future is an interesting one, because I think that's going to be the next one to fall. It started with Richard Arnold. It continued last week with John Murda. And now I think the next potential big job to be in the spotlight is going to be Erik Ten Hag's. And I don't know, guys. It's hard for me to make a call, in my own opinion, based on a lot of this. And the reason I say this is because I know Erik Ten Hag's football this season has really struggled with the availability issues, with injury issues, with the the personnel issues. I know that we have had so many injuries out there. A lot of things have gone wrong across this season. And I know that Erik Ten Hag is a manager who likes to rely on a small group of players. And he hasn't had those players fit all season. So I have a lot of sympathy for him in that regard. But on the same hand, I don't think we can ignore the fact that we've lost 13 league matches, that we have a minus goal difference with 7 matches left in the league, that we went out in a very embarrassing situation in the Champions League, in the League Cup as well. Yes, we're still in the FA Cup, but I don't think the FA Cup is going to save a manager in that. I don't think an FA Cup is enough to save a manager in this day and age, and I do think that the results across this season haven't been good enough, and we've had some shocking losses, we've had some shocking performances, and I guess I'm kind of in the camp that Erik Ten Hag should have done better with the issues he's had. He has had the same problems every single week on that pitch, and look, this is nothing new. You've heard me guys say this a million times, that we've had the same issues from playing Wolves on match day 1 as what we did playing Liverpool on match day 31. We haven't improved in those regards. We haven't tried to fix the problems that were there. I guess if we saw a more pragmatic approach to what we were doing, and Erik Ten Hag saying, look, I don't have the personnel at the minute to play the style of football that I have. We've tried it. It's not really worked. I'm going to go back to what we did last season, which is pretty successful, and that was playing lower. That was not giving the space in behind. That was maybe not pressing as high, and that's more of a transitional style of football. I guess we could have accepted that, because that would have meant perhaps that we would have more wins or more points. We would have conceded less goals. But the facts do stand for themselves, and it's not just Erik Ten Hag. A lot of the players this season have had very, very underwhelming seasons compared to where they were last year. You look at Rashford, you look at Bruno, you look at Casemiro, undoubted drop-offs in quality of 3 of the main players from last season. Lisandro Martinez, another key player from last season, has barely featured this year. We've had a lot of issues on and off the pitch with Jadon Sancho. We've had a lot of players come in who haven't really settled in and had a real run at it for whatever reason. You're looking Mount there, a big signing last summer, hasn't been fit. You look at Onana coming into a new league, a new team, and he's conceding 35 shots on goal per match. There's no chance for him to succeed in that their system. You've got a striker in Højlund who came in injured, got injured as well during the season. He scored 13 or 14 goals this year, but for the majority of the matches, he gets maybe 1 or 2 passes from our wide players combined. So it's been a multitude of reasons behind what's happened at Manchester United this season. And ultimately, everything has happened for a set of reasons. There's been a series of causes that have led to this really poor season that we're on for. At the minute, I think the all-time worst United season in terms of points in the league is 57 points. We're on 49 at the minute. There's, I don't know how big the guarantee is that we pick up more than 9 points out of the last 7 matches. I really don't at this point, and that's hurtful to say. But again, it could be so different, because even last week, against Liverpool, against Brentford, and against Chelsea, we dropped 7 points in the last 10 minutes of those matches. If we held on in those matches like we probably should have done, we'd be 4th. We would be above Tottenham Hotspur at the minute. We would be either a point behind or a point ahead of Aston Villa, as far as I can recall. So it's so odd, because those points literally could have put us into a position where Erik Ten Hag might be guaranteed a job if he finished there this season. So it's such a strange season to analyse, to think about, to contextualise. I just don't know, guys. Like, I really don't. Now, I've got a lot of thoughts down below. I'm going to go through some of the thoughts here. I've got Stephanie down below. Good to see Stephanie. Jarl said you cannot have a small squad of 14 players in the Premier League. Not possible. And that's also why Ahmad Namrabat is not getting game time. Hello to Luman. Good to see you guys. Man Utd. Got my baked bread. And Jarl obviously having some baked bread. So it was a nice one. Anyway, look, I guess that kind of takes me through the first 10-minute mini rant or mini rambling about Erik Ten Hag and the season as a whole. I completely understand why INEOS are not convinced, because I think they can only look upon the last 12 months as an example, and even towards the end of last season, it wasn't great. I'm sure if I pull up the results from the end of last season, we didn't have a great run in after that League Cup match. Let me just quickly pull it up, because I know for a time we were struggling or might miss out in the Champions League spots as well. Let me just quickly pull that up as well, because look, if you look back on the last 12 months, and I think 12 months is a fairly decent way to look at things. It's a fairly large scope that you're looking there. Not looking at immediate or intermediate. You're looking at a large scale there. United, last match of the season, we beat Fulham, but we beat Chelsea. Yeah, I remember those matches, but we beat Bournemouth as well. So obviously, look, the last 3 in May we won, but even before that, there was losses against, I think, Wolves. There beat us at the end of last season. With a disappointing run in as well. I think we dropped points to Brentford. Yeah, we dropped points to Brentford as well. Newcastle beat us 2-0. That was immediately after the League Cup match. That was at the start of April. So look, it's one of those ones, guys. Based upon the last 12 months, it hasn't been fantastic if you're Manchester United, and that's unfortunate. I really wish it wasn't the case. Dirk Rowe, hasn't Ten Hag got the worst record in giving equal game time to every player? Well, no manager should have an equal. No manager should have an equal amount of playing time to every player. You're meant to have better players. If you have a squad of players and every one of them is of the exact same ability, then you haven't got a balanced squad. Some players are going to be better. Some players are going to be not as good, and the players who are better should have the more moments. The players who are maybe not at that level can be your squad players and fill in when needed, but not everybody should be getting equal amounts of minutes. Now, look, you can have your own thoughts and your own feelings about certain players playing certain matches at certain times. Your Marcus Rashfords or your Brunos, you can think they're overplayed. You could think that then they do better within their own right. And yeah, I get it. I do get that. I completely understand that. But the way I see it is that to have a balanced squad, you have to have players who come in, you have to have players who drop out sometimes, you have players who turn to in the big moments. It's one of those. Daniel is down there. I think Ten Hag stay because there's no one else out there to. Do I agree? I don't really agree with that, to be fair, Daniel. And the reason I say that, and it's not to have a go at anybody, it's that I think when we compare Erik Ten Hag whenever he was at Ajax and whenever we first brought him in, I think based upon that, he was probably the most in-demand manager with the highest stocks and the highest profile and the highest public perception that there was at the time. And I would agree maybe that based upon that level of Erik Ten Hag, there maybe isn't a clear and outstanding coach. But I think what you have to look at as well, and I think what the club are going to look at, is that's not what we're looking for in this situation. You have to go off the Erik Ten Hag that we have got at this moment in time. And is the Erik Ten Hag we got at this moment, based upon this season's results, is he replaceable? Is there managers who can operate on that level or above that level? And I think based upon this season, it's a definite yes. And I think there's been problems with Erik Ten Hag across this season. And one of them that I see drawing a little bit of attention online, and I think it's an interesting one, is how specific his Ajax team was. His Ajax team was a very specific team in how it played and in terms of the profile. And everything happened to work out really well. He had 11 starters every week. He had 14 players, 15 players all in all he could turn to with very high technical levels, very high fitness levels, who could get up and down the pitch and do all the jobs he needed them to do. And it kind of fit. It fit like a glove. It was the perfect fit at the perfect time. Now you're asking the question, is this transferable? Can you even rebuild a team of that nature at any other club? Because even in his own words, Erik Ten Hag said, I can't play that style of football because I don't have those exact players. And I think maybe that's something that we do need to go back and look into. I think at the time it was misconstrued as Erik Ten Hag said he can't bring his players over because the players he can add weren't good enough. Maybe that's how we looked into it, but maybe we need to take him on a literal basis there that he cannot play the style of football he had at Ajax that worked with this system because he doesn't have the exact same group of players. And maybe that's the case. So it's an interesting thought either way. I think it's one that we're sadly never going to get an answer to because, in my opinion, I think 7 league matches and an FA Cup semi-final. So what? If 8 guaranteed matches. If you make the FA Cup final, that's 9 matches. I don't think that's enough to save him, even if he goes on and wins them all, because I think that they'll look at it from a high level viewpoint, and I think that they might turn elsewhere. I don't know though. Look, I might be proven wrong. That's just my opinion based upon what I'm reading into at this time. If you guys have your own thoughts, make sure to drop them in down below. Dirk Crow, but a lineup should depend on opposition, style of play, and should be based on tactical reasons and not any other. If a game requires Amrabat, he should start. You can't have a fixed lineup. No, you shouldn't have a fixed lineup, but you should have a fixed set of principles that you bring in and that you have across the board. Most teams will want to stick to a belief, and if you believe in the way that you play football and you believe in that system, then you have to roll with it. You know, that's where we're looking at this moment in time. Dirk Crow. What was Dirk Crow saying? I missed something. I don't know. Stephanie said PLC with the bread and butter. To challenge properly needs 76 points minimum a season. That also means 75 plus goals scored. Yeah, look, I agree. I think the fact that we are in match day 31 with a negative goal difference is unbelievably concerning. Like that is literally showing that across this season we haven't been good enough at scoring goals or good enough at keeping goals out at the other end. And that's unacceptable. If we finish this season with a negative goal difference, and I think it was the same last season as well. Last season was concerning in terms of our goal difference. I don't think it was great. Last season we scored 58 goals. We conceded 43. We only finished with a goal difference of 15, which really wasn't good. It was the second lowest in the entire top half of the table. So you know that there's questions about sustainability there, and we have to have sustainability there and a base level that we operate from as well. But look, I guess I'll move on to the next story. The next story is kind of more positive. That's Jason Wilcox going to be coming in as technical director. From what we're seeing online, from what we're seeing from a lot of the good sources out there, it looks like it's going to be done within the next week or two, which is really good because we want to get these guys in before the summer transfer window starts. Now, look, Wilcox is not going to be bringing a scouting list. He is not going to be sitting up all hours of the night watching Bolivian under-18 football, looking for the next big talent come out of South America. That's not going to be his job, but they want his thought process, they want his opinions, and they want his overall expertise in terms of what they've done, because by all accounts, even under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and this is something I picked up in a video I watched earlier from the Muppeteers, they had under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer kind of a council of a council of footballing minds. So you had Marcel Boot, you had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Darren Fletcher I think was on it, there was other guys on it as well. Some of the head scouts were on it. I think some of the coaches, Kieran McKenna, might have been on it as well. John Murda also was on that. And what they basically did was they sat around and they came up with players who might be good to look at, good to bring in. And that's why you see Ole being linked to all these top-level players and all these people who we could have had under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It's not entirely Ole who came up with all these ideas, but what they basically had was the problem that even though they had come up with these lists of players, they got very little of them in, because part of the reason we didn't get them was because we then had to go with these lists of players and sell them to the two kingmakers in the club, and that was Joel Glazer and Ed Woodward. And if they didn't want the player, if they didn't think that it was the transfer to go to or the move to make, then they didn't do it. Now I guess what we're trying to do is trying to bring back something like that. These are going to be club signings. These are not going to be manager specific signings. It's going to be a club direction, and the manager will have to align with that, just as if he was any player as well. So that's an interesting one as well. I can see us bringing a model back like that. And I think that's important that we do that we get as many good people with footballing knowledge around the board, around the executive, who can really positively impact how the first team play football, how the women's team play football, how the academy, how the reserves. The general direction of the club needs to be focused on football, not being on a business, not being on shirt sales, not being on revenues. It needs to be on football, and that's hopefully what we're getting back to. Um, definitely says Ten Hag was able to bring some of his players in, but unfortunately inherited players he didn't want and wasn't allowed to remove them. So that's a real issue with any United manager. Yeah, look, there's definitely going to be elements of that. There's definitely going to be elements of that, and even some of the players he did bring in, they seemingly were not first choice. Casemiro was not first choice. He wanted Frankie de Jong instead of Casemiro. We weren't 100% convinced on signing Christian Eriksen. That didn't happen until July. He really wanted Mason Mount, and he got Mason Mount, but Mount was never fit. I guess that's one that he really pushed for, that we did get. We eventually got Anthony. It hasn't worked out. I don't think it will work out for Anthony. That's just my own opinion on it. Yes, there was players at the club who he couldn't remove, or he maybe wanted to remove, and you will have seen issues with that, with your Harry Maguires, your Scott McTominays, who we could have sold or probably should have sold at points. I think as well as that, Ten Hag has been a little bit handicapped by the fact that we didn't get first choice targets, we didn't get second choice targets. A lot of these were third choice targets or fourth choice targets as well, but I don't know. I really don't know what is going on behind the scenes. It's one of those, we probably never find out until he's gone the true scope of things, of what's going on behind the scenes at our football club. We won't get that for now. But look, we got some interesting stories to bring you guys today. One of them is 16-year-old Lacey has been spotted training with the first team for the very first time. Very, very highly rated. Now, look, if you go and look at the photos, you'll see the obvious issue with Shea Lacey. He's very small. He is very small. Exceptionally talented, unbelievable in terms of his technical ability, but we also do have to be realistic that this is a 16-year-old boy as well. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's like Manu, where you can say, yeah, look, he's ready mentally and physically to come in and play against men. I don't know if he's at that level yet, but he needs to be managed, and he's definitely one to be watching out for. He is. Anyway, look, I'll cut to some of the other stories that I would like to go through as well. Scott McTominay going to be available for 2 to 3 weeks after a hyperextension to his knee. That could put him out basically until May. And in May, we got 3 Premier League matches, plus potentially an FA Cup final, all things being well. What have I got down below? Sorry. Dirk Crow, should Premier League be the bread and butter just because of past glory? Absolutely. Your league should always, and I mean always, be your first choice. And that has to be your main competition that you go for. And the measurement of where you finish in the league is the clearest indication of where you are as a football team in that given season. It isn't always the best team that wins the Champions League. It isn't always the best team that wins the FA Cup. But it will always be the best team that wins the league, because to win the league, you have to be the best, not just once or twice in a two-legged tie. You have to be the best team for 38 consecutive matches across an entire season. From the start of the season, where you're coming right off your pre-season, your players mightn't be 100% ready for the season, to international breaks, to the Christmas congestion, to the breaks in and around January time. Then you've got FA Cups to handle, Champions Leagues to handle, League Cups to handle. To come out and win the league is the clearest indication of where you are as a football team, because you're the best team for over the longest period of time. And that's why you will see more teams challenge for the league in consecutive years, because if you're up there for the league in 1 year, it's not that typical that you'll just drop off the season after. That is far less likely than a team winning a cup and fading into obscurity. That absolutely can happen. And you even have to go back through the Champions League winners. City were probably the best team last year. Yeah, that's probably a given. But the year before, Madrid probably weren't the best team. Chelsea weren't the best team when they won the Champions League. Inter Milan weren't the best team last year when they finished runners up. They weren't the second best team. So it's one of those. The league should always be our number one. As Stephanie says there, the league position doesn't lie. Stephanie also says, I recall Ten Hag wanted De Jong, Nunes and Timber, and instead we got Malacia, Martinez and Eriksen in his first window, then Anthony and Casemiro. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's one of those, it's like, I feel sorry for him in that regard, but I also am looking at it from the point of view that there was better players at the time than Anthony. There was better players who could have been a longer term option than Casemiro at the time. I do kind of feel like we jumped at the easy and obvious answers to try solve a very poor start to the season, to try to get rid of some of that pressure that was building on us. Because Glazer's out movement at the time was absolutely rampant. So much criticism for the club on and off the pitch as well. And those first couple of weeks under Erik Ten Hag, those first two matches, I'm sure if we cast our mind back, we played, we were beat at home by Brentford. We got beat. No, sorry, Brighton beat us at home. We lost 4-0 away to Brentford, and then the next match would have been Liverpool. And against Liverpool, somehow we pulled out a win, and then we beat Arsenal. But we could have had 4 losses to start the season, and it would have been absolutely disastrous. At the time, it really would have. Guys, just to go back to our poll as well today, the stances on Ten Hag, 46% think he needs more time. 12% would say, yeah, look, I'll keep Ten Hag, but he does have to improve. I think most people are going to be in between that area. I don't think there's going to be many people out there saying that Ten Hag has done an unbelievable job, that we have to keep Erik Ten Hag regardless of what happens. I think most people will be in the position of he has to do better, and then it's a question of, I don't know if he can do better or if he will do better, or I don't know if he's going to get the time to do better. I think it's one of those ones. I think across the board, every single fan out there will say to have less than 50 points after 31 matches in the Premier League, to lose 4 out of 6 Champions League matches, to be beat 3-0 at home by Newcastle's reserves in the League Cup, it's not good enough. And that hasn't been good enough. To be on a negative goal difference at this point of the season is shocking. The only time we should be on a negative goal difference is if we lose the first match of the season. Beyond that, there's no excuse for it. There's really not. Stephanie says we're up to 20 likes. Guys, yes, big ups for that as well. Really do appreciate all the likes. Really helps the stream out, helps the channel out. We have some interesting stuff coming from Nemanja Vidic as well. He's been talking about mentality. He says it seems certain players didn't stand up and perform, especially the experienced players. It won't just be about the coach. I do think it's about the players as well. The mentality issues at the club, not just this year, but across the last 10 years. Very interesting quotes from Vidic. I think mentality from player and manager can be questionable sometimes. United till I die, full-on failure as a season, worst English result in Champions League, get him out and the players with him. No mincing the words there at all. And it's hard to disagree with it as well. It is the worst result. It's the worst an English team's ever done in the Champions League. At this moment in time, I don't know if we're going to get the 8 points needed to beat the Ralph Rangnick season at Manchester United. Rangnick finished on 57 points. Admittedly, some of that was the Ole time as well. So that Ole and Rangnick season that was the worst we've ever had in Premier League history is on 57 points. We're on 49 at the minute. We have to win 3 out of the last 7 matches to top that. So you would like to think we're going to do that, but I don't know. I really don't. According to Luckhurst, so I would always take this with the biggest grain of salt as you guys can possibly take it with. United's head of player negotiation, Matt Hargreaves, will take control of recruitment negotiations following John Murtaugh's departure. Okay, we'll see what happens there. Dan Ashworth probably not going to be involved this summer. That's unfortunate. That comes down to Newcastle being a small club, and also United's takeover taking far longer than what it had any right to take. Anyway, look, I guess to go to the big story, and it's what we've really been talking about all night, but just to go through the actual quotes. Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS are not convinced by Erik Ten Hag. A decision will be given to the new leadership team, which is expected to be fronted by Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, and Omar Berrada. So That's who the decision is going to come from. INEOS can make their own call, they can make their own thoughts, and they probably have their own opinions based upon it, upon the conversations they've had with Erik Ten Hag, with those people they're looking to bring in. They probably had those conversations, and decisions probably are being made as we speak. And you would like to think so, because right now we're in April. Within 2 months, we'll be going into June. And ideally, you want to have as much of your transfer business and your managerial business potentially done before this European Championship, because you could be looking at players you really want being unavailable for medicals, being unavailable to come and do contract work and sign for your club until mid-July, and then they'll still need some time off after that competition. If they take a week off, 2 weeks off, then they come in for the last 10 days, 2 weeks of pre-season training and right back into a new season. It will throw a spanner in the works, to be sure. It always does. That's why you don't want to be doing major overhauls when you got summer transfers and these big summer tournaments. But it's the position we find ourselves in. It's a position of necessity, and there's not much we can do, because you could even say, let's shop around South America, but you can't this year because we have Copa America. So both those are going to interfere with it. But Rob Dawson, going back to that article as well, has said, despite some reservations on Erik Ten Hag, sources say one issue United are facing is the lack of standout candidates out there to take over. Some have been spoken to and some have been sounded out, but there are potential issues with them. So you could be looking at Brighton unwilling to depart with De Zerbi, who I wouldn't be overly keen on. I like De Zerbi, but I don't think he's the answer for us. You look at Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann could be a brilliant choice for United manager, but he's the German national manager. He's been sounded out by Bayern Munich for a comeback. So if you want him, you're going to have to go early, and then you might have to do a lot of waiting until after the European Championships are done in the first place. So it's one of those. I think the clearest standout candidate out there is also the more complex one in terms of actually getting him done. So it's big questions in that regard. Jarl is down there, 1 loss, and he also takes Moyes' loss. Moyes' record on most losses. Jeremy said, crushed by injuries, young players developing, deserves another season. Very split. Very split indeed. Steph says manager gets the blaming for transfers like Mount nonsense signing, but Ermal's Murda heavily involved too. Yeah, he is. It's one of those things. It's John Murda essentially is joined at the hip with Erik Ten Hag on these transfers and took all of his guidance from what Ten Hag wanted to see as well. Look, Murda's done some good work at this club. He was never qualified to be the guy in charge of Manchester United as the team, to be the director of football of our first team. He was never qualified. He never had the ability to do that. He was very good at doing the academy work. He was good at getting those deals done for the likes of Garnacho before the Brexit implications hit in, and we managed to work our way around that fairly successfully, and we have a very good academy generation coming through. But the proof is in the pudding, and Murda hasn't been good enough for Manchester United in a whole. John Moore is down there. Are the fans happy with finishing 6th? And that's a good question. It's very hard, because you look at it from that point of view. There is no escaping the facts, and the facts are we are 1 loss away from our worst ever Premier League season in terms of losses. We have to go out there and get minimum of 9 points to beat our worst ever points tally. We have lost 12 out of 31 matches in the league. We have a minus goal difference in mid-April after 31 league matches. We've had big issues in our team and with our tactics and how we've played football from match day 1 to match day 31. There hasn't been solutions given. There hasn't been a change. And that's why I think this is a really interesting topic, because I know this isn't a big channel. I know we're not a big channel. We average maybe 200 views on a stream or a video. It's not like we're one of the big boys out there getting like 1 million views for a 5-minute video, just waffling or whatever. But I do think we're seeing a little bit of a simplistic narrative being put out there that is either manager or players. And I think you can say these players have let several managers down, and it's true. I think you can also say these players have let themselves down, and that's true. But I also think at the same time you say that the manager has to bear responsibility for what we see on the pitch as well. That's also true. It's not a black and white issue, and I think we've had a really interesting talk about it tonight so far. I really do. Now let me see. Jarl saying they're very true. A manager does need to know when to give up and move on. But yeah, the summer of murder traveling to Barcelona and Torino. Yeah, look, we don't have that there either. Jeremy says sixth with our C team and a bunch of kids playing in the Premier League isn't bad. You know that it's one of those things. Like sixth cannot be acceptable for our club. Is it Ten Hag's fault? The lack of quality in our squad? No, yes and no to a little bit of extent, because he will have had a lot of transfers set, and a lot of transfer input, but over a long period of time, the squad is so misshaken and mismatched and broken in so many ways. You know, we have a team now with one left-footed centre back with no left backs out there. We're playing Wan-Bissaka at left back, even though he hasn't got a left foot. We've got a striker up front who gets maybe one or two passes per match, maybe averages a shot every other match, because there's very little service in this team. But at the same time, the manager is trying to get our midfield with no legs at all in it to play one of the most intensive pressings and systems that there is out there, to cover the most amount of ground out of players who don't have those legs anymore as well. So, you know, that's as much going to be the manager's fault as it is the players that you know he's got as well. So it's very interesting. It is. Stephanie says the manager is the manager until he isn't, in my stance. But Ten Hag must out. No favourites, no sentimentality. What happened? What happened this summer? No loans or remove unwanted. Yeah, it's true, Stephanie. We need to have a clear out as well. Absolutely agree with that. John is down there. I don't. Till I die says. Ten Hag needed depth, then why are we going for Mount and Onana, considering he wanted Mount at Ajax? That's also true. Good evening to Chat Sport. I don't know, guys. You know, I really don't. Like, some of the transfer business has been very interesting. And it's one of those things. It's moving forward, I guess. Just a little bit of a segue, because the more I think about it, and the more I think about it, the more it becomes apparent we've had too many loan signings under Erik Ten Hag because of budget issues. You're looking a bit Sayre, you're looking at Weghorst, but you're looking at bringing Dubravka in on loan, which we've done, Amrabat in on loan, which we've done. These aren't permanent signings, and they're not permanent solutions. So we want to fix that as well. John said, are the players playing for the managers or not? I think it's interesting, and this is something that gets banded about a lot and thrown about a lot, is that these players quit on every manager. I don't think they've quit on Erik Ten Hag. I don't. I don't think these players have quit on Ten Hag. I actually don't think they've given up. As perhaps seemingly controversial as that might be as a statement, I don't think they've given up. Because, and I'll explain my reasoning. I'll explain my reasoning by just going through the last couple of matches, okay? I'll explain this. Against Liverpool at home, we go a goal down at halftime. We didn't have a shot. The players dragged themselves into it. They got themselves to 2-1. Against Chelsea, we went 2 goals down at Stamford Bridge. We led that match 3-2. Probably should have went on to win that. No excuse not to be winning that match. Against Liverpool at home, we fell behind, I believe, twice in that match. Once in normal time and once in extra time. We fought back and we won that match. Let me go through some of the other ones as well. Wolves away. We led that match. We dropped in that match, and we came back and won in that match in the last minute. We fought back to do that. The same thing could be said against Aston Villa on Boxing Day. We were 2-0 down. We won that match 3-2. Same thing could be said at Liverpool against Anfield. We went a man down at Anfield this season. We managed to keep them out. So I don't think these players have actually quit on the manager. I don't think that they're not trying out there. Under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the end, it was very apparent they weren't trying. Against Watford, it was apparent they weren't trying. And you can even see that there with what Ollie said on the overlap a couple of weeks ago. He said at halftime, put your hands up if you want to come on. 2 players put their hands up out of the whole squad. He could have made 5 subs, only 2 people put their hands up. So it was one of those. I think they quit for. I think they quit for him. I think they quit in Jose, and I think they quit in Louis van Gaal. I don't think they've quit on Erik Ten Hag, this group of players, and that's controversial to say, but I don't think they've thrown him under the bus to the extent, perhaps, that we see some people out there putting into the media. It's one of those. I think they have let the manager down, and they've let themselves down with bad decision making, poor mistakes, bad finishing, and a lack of discipline at times. I think that's a fair statement to make. You can say they've let the manager down, but they haven't necessarily turned on him and got the knives out. They haven't thrown him under the bus. They've just let him down by some of their own mistakes. And arguably, the manager should also try to minimize those mistakes on the pitch as well, knowing these players are prone to switching off, or knowing these players are prone to jumping into tackles and missing, or whatever. So it's an interesting thought, and I don't necessarily think that they've quit on Ten Hag. I think they've just let him down, and they've let themselves down at times this season. And I don't know what you guys feel about that. I don't know if you agree with me or you think I'm talking the biggest load of shit. Like, I don't know. Let me know down below on that there one. Telly Die said, wasting money says we can't play the Ajax way, but buy the players to buy the Ajax manager's clueless. It's one of those, like, I think definitely when you look at it from that point of view, yeah, he's made that point before that he needs the exact group of players he had at Ajax to play that exact style of football. And I guess that's fair. I guess that's both fair and not fair, because on one hand, if you look at the team Pep Guardiola played at Bayern Munich compared to what he played at Barcelona, compared to what he played at City, there's been an evolution there, but it's also not the same group of players. It would also be the same if you look at Jurgen Klopp. Liverpool don't play the way Dortmund play or played under Klopp because he didn't have the exact group of players to get the exact kind of nuances in the game, but the principles are there, and the intelligence is there in the decision making that they do on a regular basis. I don't think we've got that at United, and I think if we had more of the principles of play, more of the patterns of play, and more of that working out some of the issues that we have had and be able to improve upon that, then I think that's what you got to do. It's like other managers have had a natural evolution for throughout their game, picking up principles from everywhere they've went, on different lessons they've learned, different things they've found out, either the hard way by losing big matches or by working with different players, different ideas, and they've kind of evolved, but they've always kept the same core beliefs. Even though Pep's City team and Pep's Barcelona team play a lot differently, core principles are still there. You cover the press, you cover your transitions, you hold on to the ball, you value it, and you work your opportunities. I guess what we're seeing at United at the minute is something like what we've seen from Ajax, but because we don't have the exact group of players, Ten Hag hasn't tweaked it to fit what he's got. And I think some of the fixes could be very simple. It could be as simple as just committing your fullbacks to the press, and that could solve a lot of issues in terms of what you're doing out of possession. And that for me is one of the big issues there. But again, it's difficult to say sometimes. It really is. Guys, drop a like on the video if you haven't already. We've got 22 likes. John Moore is down there. Yeah, we picked up since Liverpool, but yeah. Jeremy says, our least talented players try hard and aren't good enough, and our most talented players are good enough and don't try hard enough. It does feel like that way sometimes. You look and say, if you could have given Paul Pogba the attitude of Scott McTominay, you've got a player there that could be the best in the world, or arguably one of the best players of all time in terms of ability and attitude to everything for the team. It's one of those there one. It's not just unique to United either. Steph says Bruno, McTominay, Rashford in the starting 11 is effectively 8 or 9 versus 11. Hardly surprising we struggled. Yeah, it is. It's one of those, like, I get playing Bruno. Rashford this season has baffled me with his form, with his performances at times. McTominay, I feel bad for the guy because he scored goals, but he's doing what he's told to do on the pitch as well. I think that's very much the manager's decision to play McTominay in that way. Jarl says Scotty is out for 2 to 3 weeks, so now we'll have at least 10 versus 11. That's good. Steph said, question regarding Casemiro's form, is he finished or missing the security behind him like Martinez? I think it's a bit of both, Steph. I think last season we played deeper in the pitch. We weren't as interested in pressing as highly, and he didn't have as much distance to cover. I also think last season he benefited from having Fred alongside him. Fred would have done a lot of the running work for Casemiro. Now that we're trying to play a system where we have two attacking midfielders and Casemiro sitting and covering the depth and the distance, then yeah, I get that. Guys, big ups on those likes as well. Drop a like if you haven't already, guys. We're up to 22. Let's see if we can get up to 25. Anyway, I guess we'll I haven't got round to Bournemouth either. How are we feeling for the weekend, guys, as well? That's gonna be an interesting match because Bournemouth did us 3-0 at Old Trafford, and it could have been more. It probably should have been more as well. What's that? Jarl said Balto's taking the bowl out of a food for a run across the floor. Dogs are funny. Yeah, dogs are funny, man. They are like honestly. But yeah, like it'll be an interesting match of the weekend. I'm not 100% convinced that we're going to get much out of it. Like, because Bournemouth have been pretty good across this season. I'm not too sure what their form is at the minute. I think maybe they've dropped in the last couple of weeks and months, but I mean, they'll be up for that. They will be up for that, and they'll have opportunities in that match. No doubt about it. Solanke will have opportunities as well. And United actually go in, according to the stats anyway, as an underdog in this match. You know, Bournemouth in the last matches were beat by Luton, beat Crystal Palace, they beat Everton, beat Luton, drew with Sheffield, beat Burnley. But they've been a tough team to break down, and they've been a tough team to beat this season, and they're pretty high in the league. They're 12th at the minute, 41 points, and it's not unthinkable that they could finish ahead of even Brighton this season. So Ariola's done a very good job on a very small budget at Bournemouth. Jeremy's predicting 1-1. John Moore said, I think we've lost the way. We didn't ever play like PSG or any other team. I can't see stability. Yeah, it's one of those. I just don't think we have that stabilizing influence either. Stephanie's saying, can Balto play midfield for United? Maybe. Honestly, I don't know if he's in the chat either at the minute, Stephanie, but Lucky Singh said on the United agenda before, I think it was on like the Chelsea preview, he was saying to put Bruno, Kobe Manu, and put you in midfield to do some running. So that was an interesting one. That Lucky's ideal midfield would be that. There's bath time in the comments. Good to see Darius. Thanks very much, buddy. I seen your message. I was like gonna respond to you afterwards. I think is it the long throw that we're talking here from the match? Yeah, it was. I've seen that there. I've seen it. Bath time, watch the clip. Yeah, I've seen it already. It's sensational stuff. It is. What have I got? Chatsport said 3-0 last time. Yeah, it was a pretty bleak day on the channel here. Till I die, we're so inconsistent. We'll either win, nick it, or lose it hard. Yeah, maybe that's gonna be the case. Like, I think I'll be surprised if I see a top performance from us. I'll put it that way. I will put it that way. The long throw is fantastic. Jeremy would like to see Kampuala get a string of games. Yeah, look, I've been pretty impressed with Kampuala. I thought he was good against Liverpool at the weekend. I thought in terms of his physical adaptation to men's football, it's been very good. I think there's some quality on the ball at times. I think he's far from the finished article, but he could be an interesting and useful squad player to have at United. Big ups to those likes as well, guys. Big ups to Jordy as well. Does the game even matter? All about the cup now. It's one of those, man. It's like, yeah, it probably doesn't matter in terms of the grand scheme of things. Jarl says Balto likes charge on football. Maybe we'll put him in the middle of the pitch. We need more legs in there anyway. Guys, look, thanks so much for those likes. John said Stoke did the long throw first. Yeah, they did. Jordy said Ten Hag's going to be sacked at the end of the season. He might be. He might not be. It's hard to know. Important Dogs of History is back as well on the agenda. Make sure to join in for that there one and go through some of the important dogs. Look, guys, I think we're going to leave the stream here. So thanks so much for watching. We'll definitely make sure to catch everyone in in the next one as well. Really appreciate everyone turning out tonight. Thanks so much, as always, guys. And I'll see you all in the next one.